Hi everyone, Bandana here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Terminator Dark Fate Definance. Slytherin very kindly sent me an updated press demo which included two new missions, Mission 4 and 5. I'm a little bit late at getting around to doing this, so a couple of other channels will have certainly posted it before me. I went back and replayed Mission 1 to 3 because they advised that they had done some updates and things like that to those missions, and indeed, they have. The flow is a lot better on those missions. They have made massive strides in optimization. The game runs so much better than it did before. So kudos to the team, that was great. My original plan was to put up videos of the two new missions, me playing through them basically, and whatever's in between. Unfortunately, having played through Mission 4 twice and then starting and playing through most of Mission 5, I came to the conclusion that the game just isn't there yet. There are some aspects of the game that are either buggy or simply not explained to the player at all, and this is a big issue for me. Now please don't get me wrong here, the base gameplay, the units and all of that is pretty cool, it's fairly solid. But the interaction with the in-game triggers and scripts and what's happening in the missions just doesn't flow very well sometimes, especially in the new missions, and I found this was quite a negative experience at times. I want to give a few examples just so it doesn't seem like I'm being crazy. So, for example, when you finish Mission 3, whatever you take out of that mission is what you have to go forward with. However, Mission 3 is supposed to be part of the tutorial missions, and it doesn't really explain that this will be the case, which means that you then go into Mission 4 potentially lacking, as I did, any anti-tank because a lot of my units died. So going into Mission 4, I had a few half-dead squads that were not capable really of taking out enemy armor. And between Mission 3 and 4, there's no ability to buy any new units, so you're just kind of stuck. Now, I don't think I'm being unreasonable to say that if this is part of the tutorial, it should really say at the start of this mission, in big, bold writing and maybe other warnings throughout, whatever you take out of this mission is what you get to keep, so you must preserve your units. However, there isn't anything like that. It also doesn't warn you how important blowing up the reactor is in that mission. Now, depending on the choices you made in Mission 3, which again carry forward, and then the choices you make in Mission 4, potentially you could complete that mission, but the choices I made mean you have to fight everything in the area, and unfortunately I was confronted with tanks that I couldn't deal with, nor could my ally when they arrived on the map. I would like to stress that during the mission you do gain additional units, but the only anti-tank you get are basic RPG squads, which don't really seem to do much to the tank, but are actually killed by the tank very quickly. I found as a result my ally just ploughed all of the units they brought in into the enemy units, specifically the tanks and spider bots, which tore them apart. Including, slightly amusingly, the supply vehicle they were sending me, which after a few moments they then zoomed in on and said, "Here are your supplies," which obviously just confronted me with a burning wreck. There was also a few instances where the triggers or scripts seemed slightly odd in the game, and I was put in positions, for example, where I was dragged off to a cutscene but the game wasn't paused and my units were still in combat and a bunch of them got slaughtered, which is a big no-no for me in any RTS game. You can't be dragged away from ongoing combat to show you something else. After realizing I probably couldn't complete Mission 4 with the units I had and the situation I was in, I went back and restarted the campaign with the option to skip the first 3 missions as the tutorial section. This meant that I started with a lot of units from the 3rd mission because they automatically were saved and mostly at full health. I was then allowed to take a selection of these into Mission 4, which I then played through, thankfully with those fancy anti-tank units that made all the difference, and on this occasion my allies that came in at the end were able to steamroll the enemy without any problems, because it gives you the most wonderful outcome you can get from Mission 3, which is that a load of the Legion forces have also been destroyed, so you have less to deal with. I then finished Mission 4 and went on my merry way, thinking, oh, I'll get rejoined with the other units that I didn't bring with me since I was only allowed to bring 5 units. Unfortunately, all those units just vanished. I was left with just the units that I managed to exit from Mission 4, and all the other units that were back at my base were just gone, without any explanation. Unfortunately, I don't know if this was a bug or intended, because there is an optional objective in Mission 4 where you can summon the rest of your units from your base. I opted not to do that because I didn't need them. However, if I had done that, would they have continued on to the next mission with me? And did I lose them because I didn't do that? But if that's the case, then that objective should probably be a primary objective and not an optional one, because otherwise you lose those units. I decided anyway to move on to the next mission because obviously I wanted to give it a try as part of the demo. Between missions 4 and 5 you do get the option to buy new equipment, upgrade units, replace units, buy new units, etc, etc, etc. Now all of this is very cool, but my one question is, why can't I pick up all the weapons that drop in the missions? So in the missions, when units die, they drop their weapons, like their special weapons, so machine guns, snipers, things like that. However, no other units can pick them up. They can only pick up to replace what they already have. And yet there's an entire system in the game that you can buy and sell these things. So it kind of would make sense if you could pick them up, take them to the trader, and then sell them if you didn't want them. Feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. Mission 5 is actually one that we've seen videos of before. It was some of the earliest videos we saw released for the game, actually. It's not a bad mission to start out with, but the signposting for the mission is very bad, and the scripts and triggers once again were very poor. For example, I went to intercept a Legion convoy that was pushing in from an area of the map called the prison area. I sent units over that way to intercept them and cut them off, going towards some other buildings, without knowing that there was another faction in those buildings. As my units approached, I got a warning to stay away, and then they seemed to be a bit more friendly, and made a deal with me that if I got something for them, they'd be happy. However, as soon as I exited that dialogue, apparently my units were already close enough that I instantly got another dialogue warning me I had been warned and I am now hostile. They spawned a load of advanced units, including tanks with plasma guns, and annihilated that half of my force. And there was nothing I could do. There was no cooldown period, there was no indication on the map that this was their area and that I was straying into it. Once I was there, I got the initial warning, and because I was already that close, instantly I was hostile. The only option I would have had here is to reload. It was at this point that I just thought, I'm going to stop now and not try and replay this again, because, let's be honest, I'm going to run into more issues like this. I also encountered a few bugs during the game, such as at one point one of my vehicles just simply became inoperable and my units were trapped inside of it even though it wasn't damaged. I also found the game's camera very restrictive. If you're zoomed all the way out, it's not actually possible all the time to see the full range your units can fire. So you have to move to see what they're hitting. This could be solved by having the camera be allowed to tilt down so you can look along the map and not just sort of almost from directly above. But this is not an option. That was more of a frustrating thing that was a bit nitpicky rather than game-breaking, but some of the other things I found to be just very badly designed and very poorly activated triggers. I'd just like to state that for the record, the game is supposed to be a difficult game from what I gather, which is fine. However, the issues that I encountered didn't feel like difficulty issues. Things just simply weren't signposted correctly, things weren't explained to the player. And then some things just seemed like bad design decisions, like the cutscene that pulled me away from combat even though the combat was ongoing. Or triggers that activate in rapid succession and don't allow you time to alter course or change the outcome. And as you can imagine, this doesn't fill me with confidence for the missions that come after it. The TLDR is, I think the game's performance has improved massively, I think it has a solid foundation, and I think it has some really good concepts like the whole preserving your units to take on to the next mission, and the whole upgrading and changing your army and things like that, but it all needs to be signposted a lot better. And more specifically, it needs to be signposted before these things actually happen in the game, before you get there. And I think one of the issues here is that the game doesn't have a real tutorial. It just has little tutorial screens that pop up, which are certainly better than nothing, but they leave a lot to be desired. And then beyond that, obviously, the game design decisions and the triggers and things need to be looked at, because they're part of what controls the actual pacing of the missions. As it stands right now, if this is the state the game is in on release, which is supposed to be later this month, then I wouldn't recommend buying it. And I also relayed that to the team in my feedback. And I don't say that lightly. I really don't like giving negative feedback to a team, but I felt I had to be honest because I'm going to be honest if I do a review, as I have been in this video. I really hope that they manage to improve the game further, and I hope that it's improved beyond what we got to see in that demo, and that they take this feedback on board. Otherwise, I think it's going to have a fairly rough review period on release. And the thing is, it's not just me that feels this way. Raptor, who's another YouTuber, he covered this last month and played the same missions, and his final thoughts were the same. The first 3 missions were much improved, but beyond that, there was just a lot going on, lots of things that were triggering, not enough time to do it, not enough units to do it, and nothing was signposted very well. And his final comment was that he basically thought that this game wasn't releasing anytime soon. He obviously didn't realise it was supposed to be out within a month of that video. My final thought would be, honestly, I expect this game to get delayed again and be released later in the year after they've solved some of these issues. At least I hope that's the case. But I'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe as always, and I'll see you all soon.